First Contact Protocol. Captain Lizara Ven stood at the command podium of the Valkyrie exploration vessel Tydecaesar, her translucent fins rippling with anticipation as she studied the holographic display before her. The debris field stretched across three-dimensional space like a metallic coral reef, fragments of ancient technology tumbling slowly in the void. Her species had spent centuries mapping these precursor remnants, carefully documenting and preserving each discovery in accordance with the Galactic heritage protocols. But something was different about this field. Multiple energy signatures detected, Captain reported Senior Sensor Officer Kelm, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with confusion. They're not Valkyrie, not any known species. Lizara's auxiliary heart began beating faster. First contact scenarios were rare these days, with most spacefaring species already well documented by the Galactic Council. Show me. The holographic display shifted, zooming in on a cluster of vessels unlike anything she'd seen before. Where Valkyrie ships mimicked the flowing lines of ocean currents, these craft were angular, utilitarian, with exposed hardware and visible weapon mounts that made no attempt at concealment. They moved through the debris field with precision, methodically collecting pieces of precursor technology with energy tethers. Their design philosophy is aggressive, commented Executive Officer Merrill, his fins drawing close to his body, a sign of discomfort among their kind. Opening hailing frequencies, the communications officer announced, broadcasting first contact protocol greetings in all standard formats. Lizara watched as the unknown vessels suddenly ceased their salvage operations. Their reaction time was impressive, almost instantaneous. A response came through moments later, text only. This is Captain James Chen of the Terran Salvage Fleet. Stand by for visual communication. The holographic display flickered, and Lizara found herself face to face with a being she'd never seen before. The creature had dark skin, no scales or fins, and wore what was clearly a military uniform despite this being designated as a salvage operation. Most striking were the eyes, predator's eyes, focused and intense. Greetings, Captain Chen. I am Captain Lizara Ven of the Valkyrie Exploration Fleet. We are peaceful investigators of precursor artifacts. May I ask your purpose here? The human's expression remained neutral. Salvage operations, as stated. This sector falls under Terran jurisdiction, according to Article 7 of the Frontier Space Treaty. Lizara's fins rippled with confusion. I'm not familiar with this treaty. The Galactic Council has designated all precursor sites as protected heritage zones. Our databases show no record of your species' claim to this region. A slight smile crossed Chen's face, but it didn't reach those predator eyes. The Terran Space Force operates independently of Galactic Council oversight. We sign no such agreements regarding precursor technology. You'll find our claim to this sector filed with the Frontier Administration Office on Station Deep 6. Lizara felt her chromatophores darken with concern. The Frontier Administration Office was notorious for its bureaucratic complexity and corruption. It was entirely possible these Terrans had indeed filed a legitimate claim while bypassing standard council protocols. Captain, Kelm interrupted, his voice tight with alarm. I'm detecting weapon systems powering up across their fleet. A precaution, Chen said smoothly. Standard operating procedure in unexplored space. I trust that won't be a problem. Lizara studied the tactical display. The Terran vessels had subtly shifted position, creating a loose formation that could easily become a firing solution. Their weapon systems outclassed the Tydecaesar's exploratory armaments by several orders of magnitude. No problem at all, Captain Chen, she replied carefully. We respect your salvage operation. However, I am required by protocol to report this encounter to the Galactic Council. Of course, Chen nodded. We expect nothing less. The Council will find all our paperwork in order, though they may want to update their databases regarding humanity's technological capabilities. The galaxy is changing, Captain Ven. The old rules, they don't all apply anymore. As the Tadekisser prepared to depart, Lazara watched the Terran ships resume their salvage work. Their efficiency was remarkable, almost mechanical in its precision. But it was the purpose behind their actions that troubled her most. They weren't collecting these artifacts for study or preservation. The exposed weapon mounts, the military bearing, the carefully worded hints. The Terrans were preparing for something. "Send a priority message to Council headquarters," she ordered. "Mark it urgent and encrypt at highest levels. The balance of power in the galaxy is about to shift." In the debris field behind them, the Terran ships continued their work, gathering the weapons of a long-dead civilization. And in the vast darkness between the stars, something stirred, something that humanity alone seemed to sense was coming. The Tadekisser jumped to FTL, leaving behind only questions and a growing sense of unease. The galaxy was indeed changing, and Lazara couldn't shake the feeling that these Terrans knew exactly why. The silent fleet, High Archon Zixtal of the Nexus Collective, stared at the holographic reports floating before his crystalline form, each one adding to his growing sense of dread. 12 outposts had gone dark in the past solar cycle. No distress signals, no signs of combat. They had simply vanished. "Play the last transmission from Outpost Sigma 7, he commanded, his crystalline resonance chambers vibrating with tension. The holographic display shifted, showing a routine status update from the outpost's commander. Everything appeared normal, until the final 3 seconds. A shadow passed across the station's external cameras, barely visible against the backdrop of space. Then nothing but static. "Analysis suggests some form of quantum field disruption," reported Science Director Nera, her crystalline matrices pulsing with confused patterns. "But the energy signature doesn't match any known cloaking technology." Zixtal's outer facets darkened with concern. The Nexus Collective prided itself on maintaining the most comprehensive database of military technology in known space. Their crystalline computing networks could process and analyze data faster than any organic brain. To encounter something they couldn't identify was troubling. "What do we know about the missing outposts?" he asked. "Each one was positioned along major precursor artifact sites," Nera responded. "And each one reported unusual salvage operations in nearby sectors before going dark. The salvage ships matched the description of vessels encountered by the Valkyrie 3 cycles ago." The Terrans. Zixtal's resonance took on a darker tone. The collective had dismissed the Valkyrie report as exaggeration. Now he wondered if that had been a mistake. A priority alert suddenly pulsed through the command center's crystalline walls. "Multiple contacts detected," announced the tactical officer. They just appeared. No hyperspace signature, no quantum wake. The holographic display updated to show a fleet of ships materializing from seemingly empty space. Their design was unmistakably Terran, aggressive, utilitarian, bristling with weapons. But these vessels were different from the salvage fleet. Darker, more predatory. Where the salvage ships had made no attempt to hide their weapons, these craft seemed built entirely around concealment and surprise. "This is Admiral Helena Chen of the Terran stealth carrier Nightweaver." A transmission cut through their encrypted channels with impossible ease. "Your outposts were interfering with classified military operations. They have been temporarily neutralized and their personnel relocated. This sector is now under Terran control." Zixtal's crystalline form vibrated with outrage. "You dare? The Nexus Collective has protected these sectors for millennia. By what authority?" "By the authority of survival," Chen interrupted. Her image appeared in their holographic display, and Zixtal noticed the same predatory eyes that the Valkyrie had reported. "Humanity has seen what's coming, Archon. We've seen it in the precursor artifacts, in the patterns of their fall. The galaxy is about to change, and we're doing what's necessary to prepare." "What you're doing is an act of war," Zixtal warned. "No," Chen's expression hardened. "What we're doing is preventing one. Your outposts are intact, your personnel unharmed. They'll be returned once the security risk has passed." Until then, stay out of our way." The transmission cut off, and Zixtal watched in stunned silence as the Terran fleet seemed to fade from existence, their quantum slipstream technology making a mockery of what he had thought possible. "Orders, High Archon?" Nora asked, her crystalline matrices pulsing with uncertainty. Zixtal studied the sector map, noting how the missing outposts formed a pattern that suggested the Terrans weren't just claiming random territories. They were fortifying specific positions, creating a defensive line against something. "Contact the Valkyrie," he decided, "and any other species who've encountered these Terrans. We need to understand what they know that we don't, what they're preparing for, and if they won't share that information." Zixtal's outer facets darkened further. "Then we prepare for war. Either with them, or whatever they're so afraid of." In the void where the Terran fleet had vanished, subspace ripples continued to echo, carrying quantum whispers of humanity's passage. The silent fleet lived up to its name, moving through the galaxy like shadows, gathering strength for a storm that only they could see coming. And in the darkness between stars, that unseen threat grew closer, drawn by the very precursor artifacts that humanity was so desperately gathering. The game had changed. The old powers of the galaxy were being forced to adapt or step aside. And the Nexus Collective, for all its ancient wisdom and crystalline computing power, found itself facing a choice: trust in these aggressive newcomers, or stand against them. Neither option offered comfort. Operation Thunderbreak. Grand Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the Augmented Reality Command Center aboard the TSF Hyperion, her neural implants streaming tactical data directly into her consciousness. The holographic display showed thousands of human vessels moving into position, the largest fleet deployment in Terran history. Her biomechanical augments hummed softly as they processed the incoming data. Like most high-ranking Terran military officers, Chen had accepted extensive modifications. Her bones were reinforced with carbon nanotubes, muscles enhanced with synthetic fibers, and neural pathways accelerated by quantum processors. These weren't the crude augments of earlier generations. They were perfect unions of human and machine, each enhancement carefully designed to preserve humanity while expanding its capabilities. "All battle groups report ready, Admiral," announced her XO, Commander Jackson, his own augments glowing faintly beneath his skin. "The silent fleet is in position behind the Nexus Collective's lines. Salvage teams have secured the final precursor sites." Chen nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. They'd spent decades preparing for this, gathering artifacts, developing technologies, positioning their forces. Now it was time to reveal why. "Begin the broadcast," she ordered. "All frequencies, all languages, full spectrum distribution." The holographic display shifted, showing her image being transmitted to every species in the sector. It was time to reveal what humanity had discovered in those ancient precursor ruins, what had driven them to such aggressive expansion. "To all sentient species of the galaxy, this is Grand Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Space Force. What I'm about to share will change everything you think you know about our galaxy's history." She gestured, and the display filled with data recovered from precursor sites. "The civilization you call the precursors didn't die out naturally. They didn't fade away. They were running. The artifacts we've recovered tell a story, not of an advanced civilization's rise and fall, but of a desperate attempt to prepare future species for what's coming." The display showed translated precursor warnings, prophecies carved in quantum data streams. They called it the Void Tide, a sentient dark energy phenomenon that consumes entire galaxies. It moves through space like a wave of entropy, breaking down the fundamental forces that bind reality together. The precursors fled to another dimension, but not before leaving behind the tools we'd need to fight it. She could imagine the shock rippling through alien command centers. Every piece of precursor technology we've gathered, every sector we've claimed, it's all part of a plan. The precursors created a defense network, a way to generate a quantum barrier around the galaxy. But it required a species willing to make the sacrifices needed to implement it. The display shifted to show the approaching anomaly, already visible in deep space scans. We detected the void tide's approach 30 years ago. We knew other species wouldn't believe us, wouldn't be willing to take the necessary actions, so we acted alone. But now we need your help. She gestured again, and the tactical display revealed humanity's full deployment. Thousands of ships, positioned in precise formations around precursor sites. Operation Thunderbreak begins in 6 hours. We will activate the precursor network, creating a quantum barrier around the galaxy. But the energy requirements are enormous. Every human ship, every augmented soldier will be required to channel and stabilize the barrier. To the Nexus Collective, the Valkyrie, and all other species, you have a choice. Join us, add your strength to ours, or stay behind your borders and hope the barrier holds. But know this, humanity is not your enemy. We're fighting for every sentient being in this galaxy. As if to punctuate her words, long-range sensors detected a massive disturbance in deep space. The void tide was accelerating, as if it sensed their preparations. Time to barrier initialization, she asked. 5 hours, 47 minutes, Jackson reported. The silent fleet is beginning quantum synchronization. Augmented troops are reporting ready for neural linkage. Chen felt her augments warming up, preparing for the massive energy transfer that would be required. Humanity had modified itself for this moment, transformed its military and technology for this single purpose. Now they would see if it was enough. Send to all Terran forces, she ordered. Operation Thunderbreak is go. Whatever happens next, we make our stand here. Around the galaxy, human ships began powering up precursor artifacts, their crews linking minds through their augments to channel impossible amounts of energy. The greatest gamble in human history was about to begin. And at the edge of known space, the void tide approached, a wave of unreality that threatened to unravel everything in its path. The true test of humanity's preparations was about to begin. The dark tide rises. The quantum barrier flickered like aurora across the galaxy's edge, a shimmering wall of light powered by thousands of human vessels. High Archon Zixtal watched from the Nexus Collective's flagship as reality itself seemed to bend around the precursor technology humanity had activated. The Terran spoke truth, Science Director Nera whispered, her crystalline form resonating with awe and fear. The void. It's alive. Beyond the barrier, space itself was unraveling. The void tide moved like an ocean of darkness, consuming light, matter, and the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Where it touched the quantum barrier, reality sparked and crackled with the clash of opposing forces. Status of the Terran fleet, Zixtal demanded. Their augmented crews are channeling impossible amounts of energy, Nera reported. The neural networks they've created, they're operating as a single consciousness, redistributing power across thousands of ships simultaneously. But they're taking damage. The barrier is requiring more energy than they anticipated. The tactical display showed human vessels burning bright as miniature suns, their augmented crews pushing their technology beyond designed limits. Where the barrier weakened, they would redirect power from dozens of ships at once, their networked minds working with machine-like precision. A priority transmission cut through their command frequencies. This is Grand Admiral Chen to all species. The barrier is holding, but at a cost. We're losing ships faster than projected. We need your help. The precursor artifacts can interface with any advanced technology. Add your power to ours. Zixtal watched as the void tide slammed against the barrier again. Cracks appeared in the quantum field, and human ships rushed to reinforce the weakness, their crews burning out their augments to channel more power. The Valkyrie fleet is moving to assist, his tactical officer reported. Their bioorganic ships are interfacing with the precursor network, energy output increasing by 12%. Another impact. More human ships flaring out as their crews pushed beyond safe limits. The barrier wavered. High Archon. Nara's resonance was urgent. The collective's crystalline computing networks, they're compatible with the precursor technology. We could. The risk to our people, Zixtal began, will be nothing compared to what happens if that barrier falls, she interrupted, showing him projections of the void tide's path. Entire sectors would be consumed in hours. Zixtal felt the weight of millennia of collective history in his decision. They had always been observers, calculators, processors of information. But now, all collective ships, move to support positions, he ordered. Interface our crystalline networks with the precursor artifacts. We fight alongside the humans. Across the barrier's length, crystalline ships took position between burning human vessels. The collective's vast computing power joined the neural network humanity had created, their different technologies working in harmony for the first time. More species joined the line. The Valkyrie's bioorganic ships, the silicon-based Meridian's energy projectors, the quantum phase vessels of the Zin Confederation, each bringing their unique technology to interface with the precursor network. Barrier stability increasing, Nera reported. The combined power output is extraordinary. But the void tide wasn't retreating. It seemed to sense their resistance, concentrating its attacks on the barrier's weakest points. Human ships continued to burn out, their crews pushed beyond even their augmented limits. We're losing the Hyperion sector. Chen's voice came through, strained but determined. All ships, redirect power. We cannot let it breach. The transmission cut off as a massive surge of void energy slammed into the barrier. A dozen human ships flared and went dark. The quantum field began to collapse. Direct all power to that sector, Zixtal ordered. The collective stands with humanity. Crystalline ships moved into the gap, their computing networks straining to replace the lost human vessels. The Valkyrie fleet followed, then others. Species that had distrusted each other for millennia now fought side by side against extinction itself. But the void tide kept coming. And in command centers across the galaxy, leaders watched with growing horror as the true scale of humanity's warning became clear. This wasn't a battle for territory or resources. This was a fight for existence itself. And they were losing. Storm of Steel. Captain Lizera Ven of the Valkyrie stood on the bridge of the Tadekisser, her fins rigid with tension as she watched Grand Admiral Chen's final transmission. The human leader's augments were glowing white-hot neural processors pushed far beyond safe limits. The barrier is failing faster than we can reinforce it. Chen's voice was strained but determined. But that's what we expected. What we planned for. The void tide thinks it's winning. And that's exactly what we needed to think. The tactical display showed the quantum barrier buckling under repeated attacks. Nearly a third of the human fleet had burned out maintaining it, their augmented crews sacrificing themselves to buy time. The Nexus Collective's crystalline ships were scattered across the defense line, their computing networks straining to compensate. All forces, prepare for Phase Omega, Chen commanded. The precursor artifacts weren't just meant to create a barrier. They're nodes in a quantum web designed to channel and redirect energy, including the void tide's own power. Understanding dawned across alien command centers. The humans hadn't been trying to simply block the tide. They were letting it exhaust itself against their defenses, gathering its energy for something else. All ships, synchronize quantum frequencies, Chen ordered. The barrier isn't meant to keep it out. It's meant to keep it in. The tactical display transformed as thousands of human vessels altered their energy output. The quantum barrier began to curve inward, forming a massive containment field around the section of void tide they'd let through. Collective ships calculate convergence points. High Arction Zixtal's crystalline resonance carried across all frequencies. The humans need our computing power to predict where the energy will flow. Valkyrie fleet, maintain biological synchronization, Lizara added, understanding her role. Their bioorganic ships could help stabilize the quantum field fluctuations. The void tide seemed to sense the trap, its attacks becoming more frenzied. But it was too late. The barrier continued curving inward, forcing the dark energy into an ever smaller space. All augmented personnel, Prepare for final neural synchronization. Chen's voice was barely recognizable now, her augments pushing her biology to its absolute limits. The precursors couldn't defeat the void tide because they tried to fight it conventionally. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to adapt and overcome. The combined fleet watched in awe as every human ship began to pulse with impossible energy. Their augmented crews linked minds on a scale never before attempted, becoming a single consciousness capable of directing the precursor network with perfect precision. The void consumes reality, Chen continued. So let's give it more than it can handle. All ships, overload. Every precursor artifact activated simultaneously, channeling the void tide's own energy back into itself. The quantum containment field began to collapse inward, compressing the dark energy into an ever-denser state. It's working. Nara's crystalline form pulsed with excitement. The void energy is becoming too concentrated. It's destabilizing itself. On the tactical display, the void tide's darkness began to fracture. Where it had consumed reality, now it was being consumed by its own power, forced to devour itself by the quantum web humanity had created. The final collapse was both beautiful and terrifying. The compressed void energy imploded, creating a burst of pure creation energy, the antithesis of its destructive nature. The quantum web channeled this energy outward, using it to seal the dimensional breach the void tide had created. When the light faded, nearly half the human fleet was dark, their crews burned out but victorious. The remaining ships hung in space like spent warriors, their technology pushed beyond anything thought possible. The void signatures are gone, Lizara reported, her fins rippling with relief. The breach is sealed. We won. No, High Archon Zixtal corrected. Humanity won. They saw what was coming. They prepared. They sacrificed. And they trusted us to help when the moment came, despite our earlier doubts. The surviving human ships began powering down their precursor artifacts. The neural network that had linked their crews disbanded, leaving thousands of exhausted but triumphant humans. They had gambled everything on this strategy, and it had paid off. A final transmission came through from the Hyperion. Chen's augments were barely functioning, but her voice carried the strength of victory. To all species who fought beside us, thank you. We took a risk in preparing as we did, in pushing ourselves to become something more than we were. We knew some would see us as aggressors, as threats. But we also knew that when the time came, the galaxy would stand together. The void tide is defeated, she continued. But its existence proves our galaxy holds more dangers than any one species can face alone. The precursor network remains. The technology we've developed, the bonds we've forged. Let them be the foundation of something new. Not an alliance of fear, but one of strength. Together, we can be ready for whatever comes next. Across the galaxy, leaders of a dozen species considered her words. They had witnessed humanity's dedication, their willingness to sacrifice everything to save not just themselves, but all sentient life. The species that had seemed like aggressive invaders had proven to be the galaxy's greatest defenders. The storm had passed. The steel will of humanity had held firm. And in its wake, a new age of cooperation and preparation could begin. For in the vast darkness between the stars, other threats might wait. But now, thanks to humanity's foresight and the unity they'd forged, the galaxy would face them together.